making sure that we simplify and gather that trust, or gain that trust, to say, from our clients. That's really important, because when you're speaking to them, rather than them thinking, oh, they're just trying to sell me something else, they will hopefully understand and realize that the truth is this is a threat. And yeah, we may not be able to address everything today, but working with my MSP, I can get a cybersecurity strategy in place that will help me going forward.
You're listening to the MSP Security Playbook, the show where modern MSPs come to sharpen their strategy, streamline operations, and secure their growth. I'm your host, Jacob Hazelbaker, BDR here at Heimdal Security, where we help MSPs win with unified AI-powered cybersecurity solutions. Now, if you're a regular listener, you'll be very familiar with this week's guest. He's usually the one delivering the threat briefing, but today we're flipping the script. Yes, joining us today is Adam Pilton, Heimdal Cybersecurity Advisor and former Detective Sergeant in the UK Police Cybercrime Unit. With 15 years of policing experience, including leading digital investigations and complex incident response cases, Adam brings a frontline perspective most MSPs never get a chance to hear. In this conversation, we dive into why simplifying cyber isn't just Adam's personal mission, it's a business imperative for MSPs. He shares the biggest mistakes he sees MSPs make around incident response, how to move from reactive firefighting to proactive readiness, and why every provider should be thinking about cybersecurity awareness as a service. We also explore how MSPs can stand out through storytelling and social selling, and Adam unpacks how his own online presence has helped build trust and drive engagement. And finally, during the MSP Hot Seat segment, Adam fields a question from a growing MSP. It's a conversation full of insight, clarity, and stories you won't forget. So let's get to it.
Thank you, Jacob. I'm looking forward to speaking to you very shortly. Now, this week's threat brief. Imagine this scenario. Your client Citrix NetScaler gateway is fully patched. At least they think it is. But hours after Citrix drops 3 new 0 days, an AI agent starts scanning, exploiting, and persisting, all on its own. Within 10 minutes of disclosure, your client's edge system is backdoored, and you've got a live attacker moving laterally across their network. Let me introduce you to Hex Strike AI. Hex Strike AI is a next-generation open-source security framework that links large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot with over 150 cybersecurity tools. It was designed for red teams, bug bounty hunters, and security researchers to automate complex workflows. You can issue a high-level command like exploit NetScaler, and Hex Strike AI breaks that into a series of technical steps: scanning, exploiting, payload delivery, and persistence, all orchestrated by AI agents. Unfortunately, threat actors saw the potential right away. Within hours of Citrix disclosing 3 NetScaler 0 days in late August, hackers began abusing Hex Strike AI to automate the entire exploitation process. Instead of days or weeks to weaponize, attackers were compromising vulnerable systems in minutes. The AI agents scan the internet for exposed appliances, fire off the exploit, check if it landed, retry if it failed, and then drop web shells for persistence. All of this happens without a human attacker even touching a keyboard. The result is that critical vulnerabilities, such as the pre-auth remote code execution flaw in Citrix NetScaler, have been exploited at scale before official patches were widely applied. Reports confirm thousands of appliances still remain vulnerable, giving attackers a wide open window to compromise client networks. This isn't just speeding up known attack chains, it's democratizing them, letting less skilled attackers run complex campaigns at scale. So here's what you need to do. Patch Citrix systems immediately. Don't delay for change windows or routine maintenance cycles. Segment your most sensitive tools like remote gateways and RMM consoles, and treat them as crown jewels that should never be directly exposed. Pull indicators of compromise from CISA and vendor advisories and feed them into your detection systems. And most importantly, adjust your patch pipelines so you can respond in hours, not weeks. If attackers are automating their exploitation, defenders must automate their response too. Cybercriminals aren't just working harder anymore, they're letting AI do the work for them. And Hex Strike AI is proof that the time from disclosure to exploitation is shrinking to near zero. Stay sharp. I'll catch you in the next threat brief. Back to you, Jacob, and me.
Adam, thank you for your time today and welcome back to the MSP Security Playbook.
So strange being on this side of it. I'll never get this far. Normally threat brief and done.
I know, we're kind of breaking the third wall this time. I'm excited for this episode.
Exactly. No, it's good. It's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. And I love your background. You have such a unique background as your work in the police force. You were there for 15 years. That's super impressive. And you have a really deep expertise in cybersecurity and digital forensics. So I was curious if you could introduce yourself more formally to our audience today.
Yeah, definitely. So my name's Adam Pilton. I'm a Cybersecurity Advisor at Heimdal. But as you said, my background is in law enforcement. 15 years as a police officer, latterly leading the Covert Operations Management Unit. So that consists of 3 distinct teams. The Covert Authorities Bureau, responsible for obtaining lawful authorities and providing tactical advice in relation to covert activity, whether that be real world, so physically entering a property, or online world, entering accounts, hacking effectively. The communications data investigators, the second team there, and then these guys and girls responsible for obtaining communications data from the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple. And then the third team, probably expecting, would be the cybercrime team. So responsible for cybercrime investigations, but also for providing tactical advice and support, digital support in traditional investigations, whatever they may be. And then that led me into the private sector, where I then did a bit of cybersecurity consultancy work, and then worked as a Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus auditor for the largest certification body in the UK.
Wow, that's quite a journey.
Oh, indeed.
And I'm remembering something. One of my friends is a lawyer, and I asked him, what's one bit of advice you have? And he said, don't talk to the police. So that's exactly what I'm doing today.
No comment, no comment. Yeah, you should have said no comment.
That's fascinating. So even within the police force, your role was pretty deep in the technical realm of cybersecurity. What was something that you really enjoyed about those years in the police force?
I think that's for me where I first started seeing the importance of communication and simplifying cyber. Like, yeah, of course, cyber is, or can be, hugely technical and really confusing if you want to go that far. But for most people, we need to be talking at the level of really simple communication, the principles that most people would understand. So one of the things that I experienced was trying to get cops to basically embed digital inquiries into their traditional investigations was really hard. They didn't want to do it. And quite often we'd hear, oh, I'm not technical, I can't do that. But yet, if you ask the same people, what's the best takeaway around here? They get their phone out, they'd search up, and they'd be able to say, this one's got this reviews here, this one's the best price. And they tell you all the information. They know how to do that. Same principles, just needed to bring it across to cybercrime or digital investigations.
That is something I've noticed about your work is a lot of the work you do, you take these complicated topics and you simplify it. You make it understandable, relatable to people kind of no matter where they're at in their cybersecurity education. And I kind of love that approach, meet people where they are. There was a time where I knew absolutely nothing about cybersecurity or even how to spell the word. So here we are today, our little journey. And so for you, for simplifying cyber, what does that mean to you, and how do you think it's so essential, especially for MSPs?
Yeah, certainly. So for me, a couple of big words here: trust and clarity. So to simplify cyber, as you probably noticed, I always bring it back to stories, because that's what we always engage with. Whatever we're learning, whatever we're doing, is generally linked back to a story. You think about Netflix, it's just storytelling, isn't it, ultimately? And that's usually successful. And so for me, it's about earning that trust. So working with, whether it be, if you're an MSP, working with your clients, if me working with cops, or even if you're in an organization and you're responsible for embedding cybersecurity or improving cybersecurity, you need to gain the trust of those people. And you do that by making things simple and making things clear to understand, giving people that clarity, explaining that it's not some far-reach technical thing that nobody will ever get to that level of. This is the level that you need to be at, and it's simple for you to achieve, because it's just the same as, and then share something they're doing in their normal life.
Another piece of your background I positively love is your work in incident response. That's a super interesting world to me, and I think it's one that a lot of us don't really think about too much until something's happened.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective as an advisor, what are some of the common mistakes that you see MSPs make when responding to incidents?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm going to say the first thing here with incident response is quite often, if we're thinking about cybersecurity, we're thinking about incident response. I imagine most of us, our minds will go to ransomware attack. We think of the big, the sexy stuff, whereas the reality is an incident response could be the response to a phishing email, whether that's been clicked or not. So it's contextualizing that incident response is a lot of the stuff that most MSPs deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's just a scale of how serious it is, or it could be. When it comes to the mistakes that I say in general, when it comes to incident response that people are making, it's about communication. It's about understanding that, yeah, you can have perfect policies, procedures in place, but the reality is, in that moment, when you don't know who's attacking you, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, even if it's over, it's chaos, it's panic, and you cannot fit that into a beautifully crafted procedure. People need to know what their responsibilities are, and of course you need these procedures, but you need to effectively communicate at the time, and that's at all levels. That's decision makers receiving information that they understand. So if some of it may be technical or veering towards technical, but lots of time is people level. Are you communicating correctly to internal staff? Do they know what's going on? Are you communicating correctly and even looking after the welfare of the security team, the IT teams that are dealing with it? And then externally, your clients, the public, are you sharing the right information at the right time? Because there's never going to be that perfect state of, don't worry, it's all resolved, we've done it. It's going to take a long time to come, potentially. So it's getting that information out there quickly and controlling the narrative. And sometimes showing what you're doing, showing that you're in control, is a lot better than being quiet and, yeah, letting someone else dictate the narrative.
That's some really great points, especially about having a procedure neatly organized versus making sure you and your staff and everyone on board understands it fully and in practice. Even especially when things are really breaking down, it's chaos, as you said, and that's kind of hard to keep a cool head and remember. Oh, okay, in our policy for incident response, page 3, we do X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
A little bit different when you're in there.
And that's the thing, and no one can ever do that. No one has the procedure memorized. You learn what the essence of these procedures are, and say it's no different. Like I mentioned there, the instant response isn't just cyber security. It's been around for a long time. It's a police officer for 15 years, and so 20 years ago or before that, I started doing instant response work because I was dealing with responding to 999 calls, or the UK emergency service number, going out to different jobs. Those are incidents, whether it's a road traffic collision with serious injuries, or whether it's dealing with a stabbing or a robbery. They're all incidents, and they require some sort of framework or structure. But as you very well know, with instant response, no incident ever looks the same. There's core pillars that stick throughout it, and you need to understand what you're trying to achieve and then stick to those core pillars.
So if you were to kind of help an MSP plan a little bit more proactively for an incident response
Yeah.
instead of only reactive,
Yeah,
are there any other bits of advice you would have for them?
definitely. Yeah. So for me, and I don't understand why it's not used more often, but tabletop exercises, they're gold dust. So yeah, with those pillars, obviously you've got governance, you've got communication, operational agility. So being able to move on your feet, think on your feet, and change where you're going, what you're doing. But with a tabletop exercise, that is the moment that you find out what we're strong in and what we're not so strong in, and things like, and I've mentioned it a couple of times now, that understanding the decisions that senior leaders are going to have to make. That is the moment that most senior leaders go, I don't know what you're on about. I rely on this person in the organization to make those decisions, and it's based solely on trust that they make the right decision. So for them to have that experience, that's the moment of realization, and it's a big opportunity for MSPs because it's a service that they could provide, or even get someone else in to provide on their behalf to their clients. It helps the clients understand the value of cybersecurity, and the realization of their security maybe isn't what they thought. So I've done tabletop exercises before where organizations thought, we've got a backup. we're fine. Well, what if you don't test that backup and it doesn't work? Oh, we didn't know we had to test them. We just thought we had to have backup. So those are the moments that the client realizes, and equally for the MSP, it's an opportunity for them to practice and train their staff as well, seeing how they respond, seeing how their clients respond. So it really is a win-win scenario.
I love the idea of tabletop exercises, and I'm a little bit of a nerd. I the first thing that came to my mind was Dungeons and Dragons. so so it's probably not. It sounds like kind of a simulated practice version of getting breached is
Yeah.
kind of the idea there. And so you got me curious if you were to design a really simple tabletop exercise for kind of a small MSP, maybe one
Yeah.
or five people. What would be very brief example of a tabletop exercise you might have them do?
Yeah, certainly. So the important thing here is it for it to be relevant to their organization and them, something that could actually happen rather than a far-fetched attack that where everything goes wrong and it's almost nuclear in its destruction. Something simple, but something that forces them to make decisions, to make them think. So one of the things that I always like with ransomware is if you then talk about, are you going to pay, yes or no, and everyone's got an opinion before the moment in time, before there's any sort of real bother of not paying in terms of you might get data back, but then go, well, how are you going to pay? Who knows in this room how to get cryptocurrency? And it's that moment of, oh yeah, I knew it was 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 Bitcoin, whatever it may be, the ransom, but nobody knows actually how to get cryptocurrency. So it's making people think. So yeah, depending on the industry they're in, what's relevant to them, what's going to engage them and almost entertain them really, then make them think about the little cracks that they'll have in their processes that they hadn't considered.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you would make it customized to them too and something realistic because I feel like if you go all out Hollywood kind of style of, getting hacked in the most ridiculous extreme ways, then that wouldn't be as useful as something as saying, oh, let's imagine the dentist office across the street named Jacob's Best Dentist, gets a breach and 5 of their Windows computers are down. What do you do?
And that's the thing, isn't it? If they walk away and go, oh yeah, that was all right, that's never going to happen though, then that's a failure ultimately. The whole idea is, even if it's not a catastrophe for them, stopping them working during their normal business hours and then making them think and making them make those decisions, making them feel uncomfortable. Even the little things like who's going to communicate to the media. When you ask that question, you see everyone hold tightly in their chairs and sit back and say, not me, not me.
That is so true. Something I've been thinking about a lot is MSPs. They have multiple business concerns. They have their own business to be concerned about, and then their clients' businesses. And it seems like when they experience these breaches, a lot of times for especially small mom and pop businesses, it's really hard financially. A lot of them are living month to month, just getting their business going. And so if it does get breached, it does get locked down, it's very difficult. So I really would like to know what advice would you have for MSPs that have clients that they think, well, eventually one of them might get breached. So what would you do to help those MSPs prepare those clients if any one of them did get breached
Yeah,
1 year, 5 years from now?
for sure. So yeah, prevention is always better than cure. I still remember now speaking to, there was a hotel when I was in the police, a hotel that got hit by ransomware, and they weren't prepared for it. They had no backups. They pretty much had minimal cybersecurity in place, and they'd lost all their bookings, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. It was gone. It was encrypted. That was that. They weren't going to pay, and that was that. However, the problem they had wasn't just today that they weren't able to take any bookings. It was going forward when they rebuilt. They had no idea who had already booked with them. So going into the summer months, they'd be going, well, we're fully booked, but there could be extra people coming that we're then going to have to take responsibility for and essentially re-hotel them. So yeah, that is a huge problem, isn't it, for small businesses? And prevention, as I say, that is always better than cure, and that's where you should be starting. But you also do need to be practicing, rehearsing. What would it look like if this scenario happened? And we look at the greatest attack vectors and threats that are successful. Phishing, we know that is successful. Ransomware, we know that is hugely successful. So it's about having those conversations, about making people think and understand, and that's where the whole storytelling comes in. And then almost going back to the start of our conversation there, making sure that we simplify and gather that trust, or gain that trust, to say, from our clients. That's really important, because when you're speaking to them, rather than them thinking, oh, they're just trying to sell me something else, they will hopefully understand and realize that the truth is this is a threat. And yeah, we may not be able to address everything today, but working with my MSP, I can get a cybersecurity strategy in place that will help me going forward. So those threats you mentioned, 1 year, 5 years from now, you're constantly building towards making sure that when you get to 1 year, 5 years from now, your controls are better than they were from day zero.
Something else I think you do really well that could help MSPs is you've built a really strong voice on LinkedIn in particular. I find that a lot of the best MSPs that are growing the quickest and have really solid business are the ones that have a kind of a social online presence, kind of like you do with your LinkedIn and other social media. So I was curious, it seems that a lot of MSPs kind of neglect the social selling aspect and the storytelling,
Yep.
unfortunately, because I think it would really help them. And so, what would you say to someone hesitant to show up online publicly? Because it is scary sometimes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
admit it.
yeah, definitely. And I remember before I hit post on my first LinkedIn post, I remember I probably read it 5, 6, 7, 8 times, got other people to check it for me. I didn't want to look stupid and get it wrong. And to be fair, looking back on it now, yeah, it probably was stupid and wrong. But do it, and then you realize that you kind of feel like everyone's looking and the whole world's going to be looking at these posts and judging them and critiquing them. Whereas the reality is there's a lot of posts, and probably most of the people in my network don't actually see my post I put out every day. Although now's a good time to take a look. But on a serious note, the whole purpose for me of LinkedIn when it comes to cybersecurity and for MSPs is trust. So nowadays we don't know what the truth is, and in all reality, we consume media and we're always told that, oh, this media is biased, this direction, that direction. AI distorts the audio, the visuals that we see. So for me, it's a way of building trust and confidence in me. So there's lots of people I'm connected with that I haven't met, and then you meet them at a conference or when you go to work with them, and you've already got that relationship because you've connected via LinkedIn. I can think of a handful of people now that I'm speaking to actively, almost on a daily basis. I'm interacting with them on a daily basis.
And the other piece of your background I love is education. You have a very strong background in just taking difficult concepts, simplify cyber, as you say, and helping train people. So let's say hypothetically, an MSP wants to pitch cybersecurity awareness as a service.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of them mention they want to do that for the clients. It's pretty useful.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for turning education into a marketable, billable offering for MSPs?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned this earlier, and it's really important to understand and know your clients. So first up is to understand, know them. And then from that leads into understanding what the actual problem is that they face, if they have a specific problem. And then you can look at resolving that problem. What I see a lot of at the moment is that I, Mr. MSP sat here, I've got this tool, which is my security and awareness training. So if you want to come to me, I will give you this tool regardless. And yeah, for some people that will work, and that's great. But for lots of people, that tool isn't what they want. And I've sat through myself cybersecurity training videos where I like cybersecurity, I'm interested in cybersecurity, and I'm bored watching them. So you think the people that aren't interested, they've got to sit through and watch it. So what we essentially give, or I was going to say feed, if what we give people in terms of training has got to be relevant and engaging. And I've seen that myself when I was working with a large international business. Before we implemented security awareness training, we got to know the organization itself, understand that culture, and speak to not just senior people to see what they wanted, but people that are well connected within the organization at different levels who had different understandings. And then from that, we'd say, look, we've got these options for security awareness training. This is what we're thinking. What do you think? And then out the back of that, we ended up selecting a certain security product, training product, went in and we were getting every fortnight, we were issuing new security awareness training. We were getting results of over 90% of people having watched that on a fortnightly basis, which is incredible. So it's about understanding people. And I guess it's that thing of building trust, isn't it? As soon as they know that you're giving them content that's relevant and engaging, they're like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, Adam and the team, that's really good what they're doing. I like what they're doing. And actually that company, on a side note, when it came to Christmas, one of the people that was involved in the security trainings, the videos we're releasing, they actually invited them to their Christmas do as a special guest, because that's how much they got into the training from them.
Oh, that's kind of nice little.
They didn't invite me though.
Inclusion there for them. Oh, you didn't get
I
invited.
didn't get invited.
What they probably had some good food there too, so you'll have to ask them again, like maybe this year.
Yeah, we'll see.
I like that idea too of also having different training for different audiences. So I've ran into that with some other cybersecurity training I've done. They had different levels. It was kind of introductory and then level 1, 2, 3, etc. So that is kind of useful because it would keep you more engaged too. So if you are new to a subject, you'd want to be able to understand it. If it's just throwing jargon at you, it'd be kind of, boring to listen to. And then vice versa. If you really know a subject pretty well, you'd want to be a little bit challenged with it. So
Yeah,
that's a good approach for MSPs, I think, too.
definitely. No, I agree. Understand the people and give them what they want.
So I'm really curious also, of all the lessons you've learned from cyber investigations to building influence online, especially through LinkedIn, what's the one idea you wish more MSPs understood right now?
I think the answer to that one is storytelling and the value of storytelling. So yeah, it's got to be storytelling. I think the reality is that there's so many people with different experiences out there. And that's one of the things that I encountered during my policing career. One minute I'd be dealing with victims of crime, whether it be cybercrime or traditional crime, whether it be individuals or businesses. I'd be investigating those crimes, and I'd be dealing with suspects, arresting cyber criminals, arresting offenders. And all those people had a different story, had a different angle, a different view take. And quite often, and if I look towards, particularly if I look towards the criminals, the people that I was arresting in that element, quite often their story completely changed the viewpoint of where you come from, whether it be drug users, fraudsters. They all had a story which made sense as to why they were there at that moment. Not every one of them was bad, should we say, to the core. There was a reason all these things happened. So for me, that really showed the importance of stories and people. And I think everybody will relate to different elements of stories, and that's why they're so valuable to getting that information across, because it will trigger something in our mind, and there'll be a hook there forever that someone will go, oh, do you know what? I shouldn't click on that link because this person did this, and then it made them feel this way, or this happened, whatever the trigger is inside them. So yeah, for me, storytelling is the absolute key.
We should definitely bug Netflix after this. We have our next police show. And Adam, you're starting a new webinar series. I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we got two. We got ThreatWatch Live. So both these are on a monthly basis. ThreatWatch Live is all essentially about looking back at the month that's just gone, and we'll dig into the cybersecurity news, breaches, the latest regulatory or legal news, and we share that information in a conversational and educational and obviously storytelling style. And the whole purpose of it is to make sure that everyone's chipped up with the latest information. They know what's going on. They've got an hour with me for me to get that information across to them in a way they remember it. And then out the back of that, not only will they understand those threats and make sure they're protected, their clients are protected from those threats, but when they're then speaking with their clients about these conversations, like, do you know what, we need to look at our cybersecurity strategy, and have you considered tabletop exercises, like following on from our conversation today, they'll have the confidence to do that. And then they'll have the credibility, because then they'll be able to go, oh, do you know what? Now that we're talking about this, and in your industry, I heard this story, and this story is relevant to you. And they'll be able to relay that information. So it gives them more confidence in themselves and increases their credibility. And the other webinar, other series we've got running, is the Heimdal Labs Deep Dive. and that's digging into products and features in Heimdal. So the first one we did was remote access protection, a new feature that Heimdal was launching. Basically, we dig into the details of that. We look at the why of it. We give you the story behind that. And so for remote access protection, for example, remote access breaches are dramatically increasing at the moment. And the solution is often multiple different things, which is a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of people. Whereas the remote access protection tool simplifies that whole piece. So yeah, next month we're looking at version 5 of Heimdal.
Okay, great. We look forward to those webinars. The last bit for you, Adam, is actually a question from an MSP. So they wanted to ask you, they said, I run a small but growing MSP. If you were in my shoes, starting from scratch with limited resources, but a strong drive to build trust and cut through the noise, what would you do first to land your first 5 clients and stand out in such a crowded market?
I think the crowded market thing is a really important point there. So everyone's trying to be different by having a different angle and a different take on things. And when I was at InfoSec this year, I put a post up on LinkedIn about it, not naming anyone, but you speak to different vendors and they've all got these amazing sounding products and products that I'm sure are good, but they give them their own names and they give them their own twists and angles, that to the point that I was speaking to one vendor and I was like, I work in the industry, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it ultimately was behavioral analytics is what they were talking about, but they'd complicated it and confused it so much that simplification, that clarity had totally gone for even someone in the industry. So the differentiator for me has to be trust, simplification, getting that trust with your clients, whether you do that through LinkedIn, whether you do that in person meetings, or whether you do that through some other means or method, but getting that trust with your client so that you actually become their trusted advisor. You can then go to them, right, this is the problem, these are the solutions, how do you want to do it? Time, as in what's the strategy going to be, all those things. But yeah, for me, it'd be about building trust and making sure the clients that you've got are going to stick with you because they know you're good, they can trust you, and then they're going to recommend you. And I'm sure pretty quickly those extra 5 you mentioned will arrive.
Mr. Adam Pilton, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and you have such a very interesting background in the police force, an educator, and now online content for cybersecurity training, keeping it simple and understandable for everyone. So I really appreciate your time today, sir.
Oh, and thank you for your time, Jacob. Appreciate it.
I really enjoyed today's conversation with Adam Pilton. I really love the way he approaches cybersecurity education, and not only keeping it simple and relatable if you're new to cyber, but also keep it engaging. The other thing he mentioned I think is very, very useful, and this came from his background in the police force, is tabletop exercises. I've seen this done in a lot of companies, but MSPs not as often, especially the small ones, but I think it would be very useful. So for example, if you wanted to see, are you prepared for a cybersecurity breach for one of your clients? Maybe test it out in a kind of safe, secure practice manner. So for example, if your dentist office you're helping across the street gets hacked and their computer is encrypted, would your dentist office still be able to continue their business for the next week, for the next month, until the issue's resolved? So it's always good to test those backups and actually test out the scenario to make sure you know what to do. The last piece I thought might be the most helpful, in fact, for MSPs, is Adam's background in social selling. In particular, he's very active on LinkedIn, creating content that's useful for people in cybersecurity, especially MSPs. But what I find a lot of MSPs that are doing really, really well do, the ones that are growing the quickest, they often have a very strong online presence as well. So I think that's something that could really help MSPs. So I found this to be a really insightful conversation with Adam Pilton today. I love his background in police forces and as a cybersecurity educator. And I hope you got some good nuggets of wisdom from this too. That's a wrap on this episode of MSP Security Playbook. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. If you found today's insights helpful, be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. It helps other MSPs find the playbook and level up their security game. Got a question you want us to tackle in the MSP Hot Seat? Or a topic you'd like to hear more about? Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay secure, and keep building the future of your MSP business.